Hello there, my fellow myth and fantasy nerds. My name is Tanner, and I'd like to welcome you back to my YouTube channel. Now, I'd like to start this video with a big old Happy Mother's Day to all of the moms watching this video, past, present, and future. Now, to celebrate Mother's Day, I thought I would tell you guys one of my favorite stories. Specifically, the story of Demeter, Persephone, and Hades, aka how the seasons came to be. Now, you're probably wondering why I chose this specific story for Mother's Day, and that is because one of the many storylines in the myth is what lengths would a mother have to go to in order to make sure her child is returned safe and sound? As always with my other myth retellings, linked to the playlist up in the cards and in the description, I'm going to keep this story as close to the original as I can, but I'm going to be adding in some creative license when and where it is needed. So make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe down below, since that always helps. And without further ado, here is the story of Hades, Demeter, and Persephone. Long ago, back in ancient Greece, Demeter, the goddess of agriculture and farming, lived with her only daughter, Persephone. Now, since Persephone was Demeter's only daughter, she was a bit protective of her. She wanted to keep her daughter all to herself and keep her safe from harm. However, as Persephone grew older, she wanted to see more and more of the world, and after much begging and pleading, her mother allowed her to walk the earth, as long as her nymph playmates slash babysitters were close by. Unfortunately, as she played with her nymph friends, someone else seemed to notice them. Hades, lord of the underworld, saw Persephone and immediately fell deeply in love. However, he knew he simply couldn't ask Persephone to join him in the underworld, and he knew that if he asked Demeter, she would absolutely refuse to let him have her. So he went to see Zeus, his brother, and king of Olympus, to see what he had to say about it. "Aha, dear brother," Zeus said, when he saw Hades had come to visit. "What brings you to the palace?" "Zeus," Hades said tentatively, "I need some advice. Some dating advice." Now, despite not officially being the god of dating, Zeus was an expert, having dated many, 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 many people throughout the ages. "Well, you've come to the right brother, Hades. What's on your mind?" "Well, you see, there's this girl I've fallen in love with." "Okay, with you so far." "Well, I really want to marry her, but I don't think her mother would approve." "Ah, say no more," Zeus said. "It's really quite simple, dear brother. If you want to see her in private, you need to lure her away from her mother, sweep her off her feet, and take her to your domain." "And you sure that's a good way to tell her I love her?" Hades asked skeptically. "Usually works for me," Zeus said, right before Hera the queen walked into the room. With that advice in hand, Hades set his plan into action. Meanwhile, Persephone was playing with her nymph playmates when, almost as if they appeared right at her feet, there was a small patch of wildflowers, which led down a pathway into the nearby woods. As she moved down the path, the flowers became more and more enticing to her. Entranced by their beauty and fragrance, she was soon very far from her babysitters. As soon as she was far enough away, the ground split open, creating a pathway into the earth, and out sprang Hades, riding a pitch-black chariot pulled by 4 shadowy horses. Immediately, he took Persephone in his arms, and they traveled back into the earth to the underworld. The nymphs were too far away and didn't hear her scream. However, there were 2 witnesses who saw and heard everything, but we'll get to them later. Demeter came back from making sure the wheat harvest was growing properly, expecting to see her daughter and her nymph babysitters. When she saw the nymphs were alone and Persephone was nowhere to be seen, she grew furious and transformed the nymphs into hideous monsters with human-like heads and bird-like bodies, and voices that could entrance human sailors into crashing their ships on the reef. These nymphs had been turned into sirens. Demeter wandered through the forest, calling Persephone's name over and over again, until soon her cries caught the attention of Hecate, a Titaness and goddess of magic and crossroads, among other things. She ran over to Demeter, and she told her she did hear a scream a few moments before, and that it must have been her daughter. As to where she was or who kidnapped her, Hecate didn't know, though she did know of another Titan who may have seen the whole thing happen. "Seek out my cousin Helios, the Titan of the sun," Hecate advised her. "He can see the entire world from his chariot as it drives across the sky, so I am quite sure he must have seen something. Head to his palace in the east, and make sure to visit him at night when he isn't driving the sun." Demeter did so, making sure to disguise herself as an old woman along the way, so people didn't recognize her. 9 days she traveled, and along the way she stopped in a kingdom to become a nursemaid to a queen, who she helped to take care of her newborn son. But that's a story for another time. Soon enough, she came to Helios's golden palace. Demeter, Helios said as she entered. "What a pleasant surprise! Come in, come in. What can I do for you?" "Helios, you see many things during the day while you travel in your chariot. I just want to know, did you see what happened to my daughter, Persephone?" As it turns out, Helios did know what happened to Persephone. He told Demeter that he saw Hades taking her into the underworld, though as to why he took her, he wasn't sure. Demeter thanked him and flew to Olympus to confront Zeus with this new information. However, when she told Zeus, he was not fuming as she expected. Rather, he wouldn't meet her gaze, and he kept fiddling with the hem of his robes. Demeter then realized that these mannerisms made him seem rather guilty. "Zeus," Demeter said, in that calm before a storm kind of voice, "what have you done?" Zeus confessed that Hades told him he was in love with Persephone, and he advised him to sweep her off her feet. "Zeus, bring back my daughter now," Demeter said furiously. "I wish I could," Zeus said placatingly, "but I gave him my word. Besides, you know the rules. I can't just waltz into the underworld without permission." "Very well," Demeter said sinisterly, "but I will get my daughter back, one way or another." She turned around and started towards the door. "What do you mean?" Zeus said tentatively. Demeter half turned to look back at him. "Until Persephone is returned to me, I swear no crops on earth will grow. The mortals that you so love will starve, and every living thing will share in my pain. Days passed, and true to Demeter's word, nothing grew on the earth. Zeus at first thought, she's just having a tantrum. She's gonna come to her senses sooner or later. But days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months. At that point, Zeus realized Demeter was quite serious with her threats. So he finally relented and sent Hermes the messenger to the underworld to pick up Persephone. Meanwhile, Persephone was just miserable. She found it hard to sleep. The perpetual coolness and dampness made her skin feel clammy, and she simply refused to eat anything. She knew that if she ate or drank anything from the underworld, she would have to stay there forever. She eventually found herself wandering the grounds, quite frankly, out of sheer boredom, and soon she came upon a beautiful greenhouse with a garden of plants that grew gems and crystals instead of fruit, exotic plants that glowed in the dark, a small brook winding its way through, and even a few fruit trees that grew some of Persephone's favorites. "Do you like it?" said a voice. Persephone whipped around and saw Hades sitting next to her. "I made this for you. I noticed that you missed the lighted world so much, so I made this greenhouse and this garden to remind you of it." Persephone was shocked, but also a little touched. It is beautiful, Hades, and I thank you for making it for me, but that doesn't change the fact that I can't stay here. I miss the sun, and I miss the flowers, and the sky, and the stars. She trailed off, and Hades knew what else she was thinking. "You miss your mother, don't you?" he said. She turned to him, and tears started to well up in her eyes. "Well, I hate to do this, but I've recently got a message from Hermes. He said that the entire Olympian Council is requesting that you go back, and sadly, I cannot fight them." "What's going on?" Persephone asked. "Your mother's refused to let anything grow on the earth until you return to her," Hades said sadly. "You know what? How about you wait here and enjoy this gift that I made for you while you still can, and I'll go get your things." He left, and she sat there, staring at a bowl of fruit laid out on the table. She saw that there was a pomegranate sitting there, and she remembered that it was one of her favorites. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said a voice. She turned and saw an undead gardener tending to the trees. "Ah, I miss eating those fruits," he said wistfully. "Who are you?" Persephone asked. "Ascalaphos," the shade said. "Hades hired me to tend this garden for you." "I see." She sat there awkwardly and thought about everything that had happened. She surprisingly felt conflicted. On the one hand, she missed the world above and her mother, but on the other hand, she had grown to love Hades, despite the fact that he kidnapped her. "Why don't you have a pomegranate?" Ascalaphos said. He took one of the pomegranates from the bowl and sliced it into quarters. Seeing the reddish purple seeds glimmering made Persephone's stomach growl. "Well, I suppose a few seeds wouldn't hurt," she said. She popped one in her mouth and was surprised at just how delightful it was. Before she knew it, she had already polished off 1/4 of the fruit and was just finishing her second quarter when Hades and Hermes came back to collect her. "You ready to go?" Hermes asked. "I suppose," Persephone said. Hermes took her by the hand, and noticed that her hands had a slight purplish stain. "What is this?" Hermes said. "Did you eat anything while you were here?" "Just half of a pomegranate," Persephone admitted, "but that was it." "Ah," Hermes said awkwardly. "Well, that's certainly going to make things troublesome. I'm going to have to tell the council about this." He disappeared to tell them what had happened. When Demeter heard the news, she was heartbroken. She became so upset, she somehow managed to curse Ascalaphos in the underworld and turned him into a lizard. She then turned to the rest of the Olympian Council. "Is there anything we can do? Anything at all?" Zeus thought about this and then came up with a solution. "It's really quite simple. We'll just have Persephone split her time. Since she only ate 1/2 of a pomegranate, then she will spend half the year in the underworld, while the other half will be spent in the upper world. Fair enough?" From then on, Persephone would divide her time between being the goddess of spring and flowers and being the queen of the underworld. When she is with her mother, the days are sunny and warm, and the crops grow tall and strong. When she goes to the underworld, however, the days become cold, and Demeter refuses to let any plants grow. And that is how the seasons came to be. And there we have it. That was the story of Hades, Persephone, and Demeter, or how the seasons came to be. If you like this video and you want more, please give this video a like and subscribe down below so you don't miss any new videos. Also, if you have any other ideas for any future videos, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and who knows, they might just happen. Alright, well, that's all the time I have for this video, so I'll see you all next week with a brand new one. See you guys then.